I'm Julene Jackson.
And I'm Debbie Jansen.
And we are two motorbound mama bears willing to discuss current events with honesty and boldness.
We are truth warriors. No lie is too big and no deception too small.
And we are sticking to the truth.
I always laugh at our intro. I love that. Well, Julene, we are sticking to the truth today, but you better buckle your seatbelt, baby. We are moving at warp speed. Julene and I like to bring you current events and highlight the truth and the lies that we find out in Washington or anywhere else in America or the world. But President Trump and the other news this week have moved so fast, it's hard to keep up. Yeah. So let's start with the event you attended after the inauguration. I think it's really great, and I want to hear all about it.
Well, I hate to not, miss it just because so many things are transpiring each day. But 1 week ago today, on January 24th, was the 52nd annual March for Life. And President Trump wasn't able to be there because he was in North Carolina and California checking out the disasters there, but he sent J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, our vice president, said it was his first official business was to attend this March for Life. It was wonderful. It was cold, but the sun was bright. There was about 200,000 people. I think there was probably more, but the Washington Post always undercounts godly gatherings in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And it's really a march for life, for the protection of the unborn. Since Roe v. Wade was enacted, legalized national abortion in 1972, over 63 million babies have been murdered through abortion, right? Mm-hmm. And even though Roe v. Wade was overturned 2 years ago, and what a miracle that was, still just a few months ago in this last election, 7 states passed pro-abortion amendments. So we continue to march for life because the fight is not over. And it was beautiful. There were so many young men and young women from high schools and colleges. My 24-year-old daughter, who is a doula who helps deliver babies, was with me, and my 17-year-old daughter and many of my daughter's friends from high school were there. And it was just amazing. Young people from all over the nation, probably 25 members of Congress, the Speaker of the House, Johnson.
Oh, my goodness.
Was
that's
there.
Great.
The Senate Majority Leader, Senator John Thune from South Dakota was there. Governor DeSantis and his wife and child from Florida was there. I mean, it was just really amazing. And then, of course, J.D. Vance, and they all spoke powerfully. And Deb, my favorite speaker, was an abortion doctor, and she was a lady doctor, and she had taught to perform abortions out of medical school. And it wasn't until she had her first baby and her heart took a turn, and one day she was getting ready to prepare to perform an abortion, and she said in that surgery room, she said, God showed me what the face of that baby looked like, the horror in that baby's face as I began to perform the abortion. And she said after that, she never performed another abortion again. It was powerful. I mean, I wept several times over the course of this hour-and-a-half rally. And, she said, some people said, how can you even move on in life knowing that you have performed abortions? And then she said, it is because of Jesus Christ. And she bore a beautiful testimony of the power of forgiveness, and it changed life. And now she heads up an organization for obstetricians for life. And it was really powerful. And I was so happy to be there with my daughters and to see how they stand for life. And it was just an amazing experience. And then we all marched from the Capitol, the Washington Monument, actually, to the Capitol along Pennsylvania Avenue. And it was wonderful.
Oh, Julene, that sounds terrific. This doctor, I had cold chills on my arms when you were talking about it, because I always, anytime there's a tragedy, I'm thinking about what is that person feeling. But I can't believe she went through that. That's amazing. And you said she has a group now. What is the name of the group?
I think it's something like obstetricians for life, and so I could look it
You,
up, but she was really great. She was inspirational, and we all felt the power of the change of heart that she had. And now she is using her platform as a doctor who delivers children to protect the unborn instead of abort the unborn.
oh, that is fantastic. A friend of mine was going through cancer, and they were praying one day, and she had some other financial issues too. And she was driving and banging on the steering wheel in the car. And she said she had to pull over and pray and get calm because things just weren't working out. And she felt like God said to her at that point, I have more answers to your problems than the snowflakes in the sky, because it was snowing at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of thinking that way about what you just told us, because we want to march, or we want to get out there and get the word out to the person who is having the baby. But I never thought, if you get 90% of the people, doctors in this country to sign up with her, that's going to make a big difference.
Absolutely. But unfortunately, now that abortion has become illegal nationally, so they punted it back to the states. Their true colors, abortionist true colors, are coming out now, because they used to say, well, try and make exceptions or soften it, but now they don't care what the circumstances are. They want to be able to have the right to abortion. So what we're seeing is this telemedicine, where you can get access to the abortion pills. And so those have just shot up. And so they're just trying every way possible to allow this to continue. And so I just think that we have to remain vigilant, and we have to, not buy into this. It's just a clump of cells, because they've really done a number on young girls and they, heaven forbid, they call it murder or killing a baby. They don't call it a baby. They call it a fetus. And they use so many ways to tiptoe. No, they don't tiptoe anymore. They're in your face. Debbie, I saw, that lady that poked Trump in his eye last Friday at the prayer service, his first prayer service as president. She heads up.
Yes, that priest.
Yes, the lady priest. Her name is Marianne Booty. She's the Episcopal bishop over the National Cathedral Diocese, the congregation there. Well, I found that she had actually said something about abortion. It was so ridiculous, the wording she used several years ago, that you can unalive a fetus and it won't interfere with the full spectrum of life. It is possible to unalive a fetus and it doesn't interfere with. I was like, what did she just say?
I tell you, that gets me. Now, that is not a what do they call it? Misspoke, which is actually a term for I lied. It's not even a misspoke. It's just ridiculous that someone would say that. You can't do that. It's like they think if they avoid the true word for whatever, that all of a sudden it's okay. No, it's not okay.
Yeah. You use enough expressive talk around in circles, and people just go, oh, okay, abortion, killing a baby doesn't impact the spectrum of life or a woman's reproductive health. I mean, you just are like, that's why we have to continue to march for life, stand for life, speak for life.
And we have to continue to tell the truth. because I don't know which is worse, the person that renames it or the person that believes the silly name.
Yeah.
They're both lies. So, here comes my favorite saying, trying to live by a lie is like trying to nail Jell-O to the wall. You can't do it. So get away from the lies on all of this. I wrote an article about the fact that abortion really isn't needed. There are 16 ways to prevent a pregnancy, and anyone can use any of those ways to prevent a pregnancy. Anyone. All doctors everywhere will do an abortion when it's necessary to save the life of the mom. So why are we agreeing to abortions on demand? We're agreeing to them because many women have been trained that it's okay to kill a small living thing, or that just because it's part of their body, it's not alive. It's not a person. And some people have attacked me for pointing out the truth, but the truth is that abortion is there for a person who doesn't care about life and won't take the time to purchase a condom or birth control or do any of the other things that you could do to prevent the pregnancy. And so consequently, they selfishly force a tiny baby to suffer because they can't be responsible. And then on top of that, they selfishly rob our society of answers to prayers. So I know tons of women who can't have children and they pray for adoptions. And these women that have abortions, they rip those children right out of those women's arms. And then women with cancer pray for a cure. And when those prayers come through to heaven, I am sure God looks down and probably says, I gave you 100 children with the wisdom and intellect to find the cure for cancer, and you murdered them. And abortion selfishly robs us of our future, because when you murder that baby, you also kill all his or her descendants, all of their talents, and all of their contributions to society. It's not just this one little thing of I'm going to take their life. It encompasses everything in our society. Someone was talking to me not too long ago about why do children walk into a school and kill other children? They do it because our society has taught them life is not precious. Life is not important. And so abortion is actually a cause in all of the gun murders we have. That gun does not get up and jump in somebody's hand. It happens from the person, and there's all kinds of reasons. I have discovered about 200 reasons why people kill other people violently. But one of the reasons is that our society has been taught that life is not precious. And the biggest way it's been taught that is through abortion.
Oh, Debbie, you make so many good points, and it's true. If we don't value our most vulnerable in our society, how are we going to value any other kind of life, right? If we don't value the life of the unborn, and that's certainly the message that young, disturbed children are getting, that if life can be snuffed out so easily from the womb, what's the big deal, you know? And it's interesting, Deb, did you know that Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House from Louisiana, revealed when he spoke to the March for Life crowd that he was a product of an unplanned pregnancy, that his mama and daddy got pregnant when they were teenagers, and they got married. They went on to have several children, and he said, I've often wondered what would have happened if my mama didn't have the courage to have me, or how many babies' lives have been taken that could have gone on to do great things. Imagine if my mom had taken his life all those years ago, and now he's, a godly man in office, leads, the House of Representatives. And so I just thought that was a really compelling thing that he said. My daughter is 24. her life was changed 3 years ago when she's actually 25. At 21, she was a roommate with a little gal who got pregnant with a boy that she barely even knew. And she was so desperate to continue this relationship that he said, I'll keep dating you, but I don't want a baby. You need to get an abortion. And so my daughter saw that friend secretly go into the clinic, abort the baby, and pretend like it never happened. And my daughter knew exactly what happened. And my daughter said it made her physically ill. And of course, did that boy continue to date this girl? No, he dropped her like a hot cake. And so she said, and this little girl to this day is still looking for love in all the wrong places. 4 years later, every weekend, she gets herself dressed up and just gives herself to men to be used as a toy thing, you know. And so I just think that, you know, we just have to continue to speak out on it and to get our children involved. My 17-year-old is the vice president of the pro-life club at her high school, all girls Catholic school.
Wow.
And 2 days ago, her little club organized a speaker in the community who works, you know, at trying to get women to not get abortions. She came and spoke to the gals, and she said, it was so inspirational, Mom. And I was just so proud of these young girls that are so aware of something so profound, that it is murder. There's no way around it. When God says that, you know, I knew you before you were formed in the belly, that you are wonderfully made, that children are a heritage to God, these girls take God's words to heart and are going to get on that wall and defend it at all cost. And it's beautiful to see.
That is great. That is great. Thank you for telling us all about that. And we have a few more things to get to, but I want to say one more thing, even if we go over, about abortion to our listeners. Do not believe the lies, because abortion is not just going in and losing that child. There are so many tentacles throughout our society that are hurt and that are caused by abortion. I too have known people who had abortion and their whole life was impacted by what happened when they did that. I know a very good Christian woman who loved God her whole life. She had to have an abortion because the baby was sick. It was making her sick, and they both might have died. So it was a true medical reason, but it still stayed in her head and affected her whole life. It is not just a one-time experience. It is, the lie is that you're going to have this and you're going to have this great life and you won't ever think of that baby again. No, you will. And we need to explain the lies and talk about them enough so that young girls do what your daughter is doing. They are pro-life and they are ready to tell others, no, there is a better way to live. Right, Julene?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks,
okay. Well, rushing on, we need to get in a speed car to get the rest of this done, because Trump has signed 24 executive orders with a promise of more to come. What do you think about executive orders? Are they constitutional and necessary?
Well, look, they are constitutional, Tab. According to Article 2 in our Constitution, they are a power that the president has, but they have been twisted to expand the power really over the last century, over the last 100 years, because executive orders were only intended for the president to be able to shape policy within his branch, the executive branch, within his agencies that he oversees, those regulatory agencies. But over the last 100 years, presidents have used this executive order power to sign laws, so to speak, under the guise of an emergency that applies to the entire nation. All right? That's
Yeah, yeah.
way too much power. Our founding fathers never meant for our laws to be enacted by the stroke of a pen by a president in the name of an emergency. So look, when our guy is in office, we love executive orders. When the guy that we didn't vote for or the gal that we didn't vote for wins, we hate executive orders. But the nature of executive orders are really temporary because every 4 years they can completely be flipped on their heads if you get an incoming person that thinks differently than the outgoing president. So, I love what President Trump, to be honest with you, all of his executive orders, but they are really like a quick fix. They're not a long-term solution like the legislative branch and vetting bills and it going through committees and the House and then being passed to the Senate and then working out the differences. I mean, those are long-term solutions. Those are laws that will last. Those are statutes that will impact a nation. Executive orders are like a Band-Aid on a boilerplate. It's a temporary fix, but you're not permanently changing something because in 4 years from now, all bets could be off and we could get, all those executive orders overturned within days.
Well, thank you for explaining that because I was kind of thinking that maybe they were along the lines, and I'm wrong maybe, of a new company coming in and taking over your company. And so you've got a new boss and he wants to get things rolling really quick. So he sends out all these orders about what needs to be done within the company and how you're going to fix certain things that have been wrong. And as it gets going, you get used to it, you relax in it, and then there you are. But yeah, you're saying that every 4 years or 8 years or whatever, it changes. So it's kind of you're doing a flip flop on your country, and that's probably not good. However, my favorite executive order is EO 14170. And yes, I did look it up. It's reforming the federal hiring process and restoring merit to government service. But then when you couple with that, EO 14151, that's ending radical and wasteful government or DEI programs and what they're doing. And you put those two together and it kind of excites me because we finally get a government that might do their jobs. I hate the belief and the lie that you have a right to not work hard in your job. For example, if you let's say you have a big paycheck, because to me, this would be a big one. Let's say $1,500 a week, but you only produce the work that a teen would do at McDonald's. To me, you're stealing from every taxpayer in America if you have that kind of job and you're not really producing the work. I want to see what this country can accomplish when we are smart and working as hard as all those big top winners are. And then the other fact is these orders put lazy people on notice. He's refusing to allow government workers to stay home, sleep in, go jogging. I saw one guy, an official, that was trying to work within his hot tub. And I'm sorry, that just makes me frustrated because those people do those kind of things. They don't work hard, and then they make me pay for it. Because where does the money come from? It comes from my taxes, and I don't want to pay all the taxes I do to go to some lazy person who's scamming our country. What do you think, Julie?
Yeah. Hey, I live about 15, 20 minutes from the White House, so I can hear the howls from government workers in my area that are being ordered to go back and work in the office 5 days a week because they have been used to doing business in the hot tub, as you put it. That's funny. But seriously, they probably have been working, 10, 12, 15 hours a week and getting paid a 40-hour a week salary, And so I'm with you. I think we're seeing we'll talk about this in a minute. The quality of the work that is being put out is inferior. And so I really like it. I really like the executive order that was signed 2 days ago called the Ending of the Indoctrination in K through 12 schooling. So how in the president's talk he affirms that, look, there are two genders, male and female. Well, this new executive order is going to end anti-American curriculum and the usurpation of parental authority, and also this sexually based identity indoctrination that kids, can experiment with their gender, and transitioning is normal, and puberty blockers and surgery is, there's ways that you can experiment and like permanently, make changes at such young ages. And so what he's doing is he's reinstituting the patriotic education that our founders intended our young people to have so that we could maintain the nation, the government that they were going to give us. And it also is going to instill the love of this incredible country within the rising generations and the values by which we stand that have made us such a light on the hill. So I really think that what he did by this executive order, he has shifted to save, the generation of children that are been so, confused now from what they've been taught, particularly in the last few years. So God bless Donald Trump and that executive order.
I agree with you. I don't think there was anyone he signed that I didn't agree with. But these two favorites, yours and mine, I think are really good. So fast turn here. Hang on. Have you watched any of the confirmation hearings? I just don't get it. I wonder if Democrats have to sign a contract and promise to be as mean and nasty as possible. They may have to promise to eat lemons every day, and so that they'll be as depressing and mean and all of that. And maybe they take angry pills too. You can tell it. I watched some of it and I was a little upset by it. Sorry. But, Republicans often challenge people in these hearings, but I don't remember any of them using lies to see if they can absolutely destroy the person. I want to like everyone, Julene. I want people to get along. I want to find some common ground with Democrats. I want to feel like they are people that I can like, but boy, they make it hard.
Yeah. Well, common ground and common sense is what we're hearing President Trump talk a lot about. Look, my administration, my picks, we're about common sense. And I like his picks, and we're hearing RFK Jr. right now is being vetted, and Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel. And I'm like, wouldn't it make common sense to want people that are going to head agencies who, are the epitome of health and have studied it and have dealt with, is it Parkinson's that he's had? He's overcome that. And he just is this walking specimen of a man who's used nutrition and exercise and clean living, to be strong and healthy and to be sharp and intelligent. And even Tulsi Gabbard, she has served 20 years in the military. She was deployed over in Iraq. She was a platoon leader, and Kash Patel. They all have just amazing experience. He's an attorney. He was a lead investigator. He has, worked for, who has he worked for? The DOD, the National Intelligence, the National Security Council. And look, all these Democrats are, because they can't mess with their experience, right? That they try and malign their personalities and point them as extremist or conspiracy theorist or that kind of thing. And look, they're just taking plays out of the Marxist communist playbook, that if you can't go after a person's experience, then you paint them as radical, right? You malign them, you make them extremists or crazy nuts. And so I think it's common sense that you want someone that's passionate, that loves America, that's got the experience. I don't know I actually like these picks, but then, clearly the
Well,
deep state, and I just, one more thing, it's the deep state that is terrified of these people that are common sense people because they cannot be controlled, right? And
right.
so this is why they're trying to paint them as these radical right-wing nuts, because they're God-fearing men and women who love America, who are integritous and honest, and they cannot be controlled by the deep state.
You got me there. You pointed out some people that I do like. And maybe the difference is because I like them because they do have common sense and they are telling the truth. And for some Democrats, they struggle with that issue. And so, yeah, you got me there. Okay, let's move on to something that breaks my heart when Amy, because I want to get to this before we close out today, and we may go over a little bit, but everybody hang in there with us. When Amy and I moved to Mar-a-Lago, or moved, wouldn't that be fun? When we flew to Mar-a-Lago, our return flight on American Airlines went through Reagan National Airport in Arlington, Virginia. And this past week, I was watching some stuff on TV, and it was the same view that Amy and I had when we were sitting in one part of the airport. And watching the crash was just horrible. We looked across the water to the Capitol when we were there, and I can't believe this happened. When it happened, the first thing I thought was that it had to be a traffic controller person, because the airport, while we were there, I mean, it was so busy, just planes going, and people moving at a fast pace. And I thought, why else would two planes collide when their sight pattern was clear? Well, during a press conference yesterday, President Trump read a statement about the way the high standards were reduced by Biden. And it was from a report in 2023 on the FAA's website, where they said that they were targeting disabilities so that in the DEI, so that those people could be hired for positions within the airport. And they included, it makes me sad to even read this. They included that a person with a hearing problem or a vision problem or missing extremities or partial paralysis or complete paralysis. I don't know how you do that job if you're completely can't move. Epilepsy, severe intellectual disability. How do you control 600 planes in a day coming and going if you have a severe intellectual disability? And then the psychiatric disability. I read that and I just thought, and President Trump read that, and I thought, if this is happening, we've got to stop it, because we don't know if the controllers were the problem with this accident. But it bothers me because the president is right. My dad was a pilot, and my dad was a brilliant man. So anything he did, you stuck to the rules, and he would know all the parameters about what he was doing. And he talked about the great stresses on traffic controllers. And he said, we must have qualified and healthy people in that job because it is so stressful and your brain is just working all the time to make sure that everybody's safe. We can't hire people just to make a point. If we're going to protect the American people, we must hire the best, right, Julie?
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, I fly out of DCA, Reagan, at least once a month. There's 3 airports within 30 minutes of me on either side in Washington, D.C. Our airspace in D.C. is one of the busiest in our nation. So we need the most astute, sharp, intelligent air traffic controller just to make sure, that we don't see these kind of accidents. And so, look, I'm hearing reports in the Wall Street Journal and on the Washington Post every day. They really don't quite understand. We don't have all the details of what's happening, but we do know that there's rumors that they were short-staffed. So typically air traffic controllers. There's a one that does the helicopters and one that does the planes. But apparently that night, one person was handling both. So that could have been a problem. Apparently the 3 pilots in that Army helicopter were experienced pilots. One might have been in training, doing a night training, but the 2 other pilots were, had like thousands of hours of experience. So they could have taken control very easily from the one that was doing the night training. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense. But like you said, in last year in 2024, there was the biggest uptick in mishaps, accidents that we've seen in a decade. All right. We went from 4 to 15 mishaps in 2024. And I really think it might be, and President Trump alluded that, and maybe they think it's mean and nasty for him to say, but why do we see such a big uptick? I think it possibly could be, the DEI hires that were accelerated under Biden and Harris are being manifested now in this uptick of accidents. And if that's the case, that is frightening. Now, the president just in the last couple of days has issued a couple executive orders that's going to completely reshape the military and bans on transgenderism and gut the DEI programs and get rid of woke policies. And so we're going to see some changes. But in the meantime, how many hires do we have under these programs that Biden and Harris accelerated? It's scary. And I think there's a very real chance that we saw, unqualified people in positions, hence resulting in this tragic collision and 67 lives lost. And it's just so sad. We're reading about, these young people that died, and about 20 of them were figure skaters and young children that had amazing futures. And it just makes you sick, really.
It does. It does. And I want to thank all of our listeners for sticking with us today to get through all of these current events. But I think it points out the fact, Julene, just in the 3 different areas that we've covered today, that you can't sit back and accept anything. That we have to look at our country and all the problems going on in our country and ask ourselves, what is going on? How does this fit with everything else? What are the tentacles of truth and the tentacles of lies? And how do we bring it all together so that we actually make progress and we go forward and we become more successful? And I do appreciate that the Trump administration is trying to do that. I know it causes people to be scared and to be worried. Why is he doing this and why is he doing that? But if we are trying to get to a better place, then we have to evaluate what's happening right now and make changes. And sometimes that's hard, right?
Yeah, so true, Deb. Knowledge is power, Deb. And I think that's my tip of the day, that we don't want to be deceived by someone telling us what is right or wrong or what's legal or illegal or what's constitutional or what's not. I mean, how can we defend, something we don't understand? And so I'm going to give you a free, wonderful tip and blessing and opportunity. This Tuesday, my husband and I are going to get ready to teach the Healing of America seminar. It's a 16-week seminar every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for 1 hour over the course of 16 weeks. We're going to break down God's hand in the building of America and what are the leading features of the Constitution from the viewpoint of the founding fathers, and how our country has become unhinged and why we're in the mess that we are, and what we can do to heal our families, our schools, our churches, our communities, our Constitution, our economy. It is the most, I would say that what gave me the bedrock foundation of the Constitution in American history. So please join us. Knowledge is power. How can you pass on something that you don't understand? Come and learn for your future generations. Deb, how about you?
Oh, I am so glad you brought that up. And let me tell you where to go. Go to Moms for America us. Okay. And on there, you can join the classes. I think they're under the events tab, and join this one. Ron and I have taken it once before, and we are taking it again because it's a lot to learn. Yeah. But you and Al do a terrific job of that, and I tell you, it will blow your mind. And that fits with my tip for today. My tip is to be your best. If you want a better America, then study hard. Take these classes with Julene. But study hard, take some classes, read books. Don't watch a lot of television. Instead, do something to gain wisdom, to be strong and ready for action. Here's the biggest thing. Stop being a spectator that lives in America. Instead, be a participant and an excellent, hardworking, valuable citizen. Not only will that make our America better, I promise you, if you do that, you will have a wonderful life. Thank you for being with us today. I apologize for going over, but subscribe to this podcast and join us again when we discuss fresh topics. You can ask a question or request that we dig into a special topic that you like by writing Debbie at debbiejansen.com. And as always, thank you again to our wonderful producer, Ken Jansen. This is Debbie Jansen, and I'm sticking to the truth.
And I'm Julene Jackson, and we hope you keep sticking to the truth. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.